Hello, everybody. I just heard the police came out. La policía came past your house all of a sudden.
I'm gonna close that window super fast.
Okay. Welcome everybody to Rehash the Rolls tonight. How you doing? It's a wonderful Wednesday. Yes, it's a Wednesday. And I'm here with the lovely and talented Spencer on the side of me. How you doing?
Good. I mean, the police didn't catch me this time, so
maybe next time. You probably just rolled really well on your stealth check, and you just did really well at hiding.
I'm playing a rogue for a reason.
Yeah. We have the one shot on Monday, and Pat is reusing a character that he played in the very first one shot we did, and it's a rogue. And he got leveled up because I think the first one was level 8, this one's level 13, and they also are able to have some magic items. And he chose these things that are like gonna up his stealth like crazy, and I'm just like, you just never want my bad guys to see you ever. Of course, it's like I'm expecting to get like 37s on his stealth checks all the time. That's just my expectation of what's gonna happen.
I'm so excited for the one shot. This is going to be the first one shot that I am not playing in, so I just get to be an attendee.
They're a whole thing at this point now. They're very much integrated with the main story of the campaign sometimes more than episodes of the actual show are. They're more on target and on brand. On task.
Push gang. Us not on task? How dare you?
I don't know. We're always very focused. We were very focused on Monday, right? Yeah. Broke into a library. No worries. Or attempted to break into a library. That's the main thing.
Denona was very focused on running.
Yeah. For a very long time. A lot of running. Don't worry, little Miss Fodder, you're not that late. We're just starting the questions now. Let's get into the very first question. This question is from Nick. What inspired you to make Merlot?
Well, so I have a confession. I did not originally make Merlot for this campaign. So I actually designed Merlot for a Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign that I was going to play in person pre-pandemic days, and everything was all set to go. It was when I first moved to Portland a couple years ago, and the day we were supposed to start the campaign, our dungeon master bailed. So we like all had characters that were like 100% ready, and we'd even pushed back a week, and I had run a one shot with everyone else's because the DM asked for an extra week to prepare and then canceled. So I've had Merlot and been wanting to play as this little dragon for years. And so when Lydia approached me to join the campaign, I had a few different ideas and we talked about it, and Merlot kind of magically fit into this world and what was going on, and I'm really excited about it.
Which is really fun because like at the very beginning of Performance Check, before we were streaming on Twitch, when we were just going to be an online game on the internet, I was very picky about races. I was like, you can only be races from the player's handbook, or you can be a Goliath or an Asmar. That's it. Those are the only options you have. You cannot be anything else. No monstrous races, no changelings, or what are they? In my mind, I'm saying Dothraki, but that's Game of Thrones. That's not D&D. It's like the Kalashtar or something like that, something fancy. And that was very much like a sticking point for me. Like I was not into the exotic races at all, and that's very much by design. Like Idrion is very non-diverse, very standard fantasy sort of thing. And that was mostly just kind of carried over from my very, very beginning days of being a dungeon master, I was like, I don't like these monstrous races. I don't like them. I like, just the handbook and like that's it. And so since time has gone on, I've been a little bit more open to these things, and I'm like, all right, there's just more of that. It's just not an Idrion. Idrion has nothing because they don't talk to anybody. Nobody talks to them. There's a whole like rest of the world that has a lot of other things. Yeah. So it was definitely very fun to discuss Merlot's whole history and where he's from and his goals.
I made Lydia come up with so much of the world.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm just like, hey, can you give me like a list of places that I would know about and I'd be familiar with? And I was like, right. Okay, now I got a hefty world build stuff really quickly, which was helpful. Now I have some more stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh man. So this next question is from Lil Miss Fodder. How excited are you to be joining Performance Check full time?
So excited. Unbelievably excited. I've been wanting to be back in a full campaign for a long time, and I actually had when I first moved to Portland, I was in another campaign and I was Skyping in, but I was the only one Skyping in, and it was such a rough experience. So I was actually really hesitant to even come in as a guest character, but it was also perfect at the same time. Like, I was like, I don't think I like online campaigns, but it's so much better when everyone is online. Mm-hmm. So I loved coming in as Pankata, love her, and yeah, I was just thrilled to be able to come back full time. I like live for it. I look forward to it every single week. I think about it like every day.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole thing now where it's just like, okay, it's like always on my mind. I like seriously fall asleep thinking about D&D every night. It helps me fall asleep. So I either choose Zhahir from Ready to Roll or like one of the NPCs or something, and I'm just like, I think about like what they're going through and what their thoughts are. So like the other night I was thinking about Kinslayer and like how he's dealing with all of the stuff that's going on. That helps me to process and plan and come up with evil ideas. We're very excited to have you. This is gonna be a welcome addition, and just you bring a lot of like Merlot is so great. he's so
Thanks.
He's like peppy and like very to the point, and will call people out on like their weirdness. I'm just like, you think that this is a normal thing? What are you talking about? Like, that's so weird. Why is that a thing?
He's a peppy little dragon.
Little baby dragon. Which
he's an adult.
That's actually one of the questions we have. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does Merlot hate being called a baby dragonborn?
Ooh. There's a lot of layers there, and he 90% of him hates it, 10% of him 5% of him loves it, and 5% of it is very triggering. I didn't want to use that. I don't use that word lightly, but it can be very triggering for him.
For reasons. Yeah, I mean, there's not really any other way that anyone can put into context what Merlot is. I have no idea what kobolds are.
Right.
So,
but his little brain is there's some little cogs turning about that too, though, that I'm sure will come into play.
Mm-hmm. Is there going to be a time where like you come in from a massive battle, like super bloodied and battered and low hit points and stuff, and you walk into a tavern and they're like, oh, you're gonna need, like, you try and get a room to yourself, and there's like, you can't have your child have their own room, you gotta have them with you. Are you gonna like jump and like stab them and attack them, or what?
It's a good question. I don't know. Depends on some of those. I told you the wheels are turning about this. like, he's scrappy. He's an opportunist. Who knows what's going to happen with this thing as it becomes a pattern, which I imagine it somewhat inevitably might while they're in Adrian.
Oh no, it just came to my brain like from Zootopia where the like baby fox pretends to be, he's not a baby fox, he's like a fennec fox, but he pretends to be a baby fox to get like to swindle people. Oh boy.
Could be.
Merlot in a baby cradle.
Don't put it past him.
Yeah. So this next question is from Nick again. I get wanting to be known as a captain. Why not use your real name? Why use Malsorin instead?
Secretos, secretos, so they say. Why haven't you asked, Nona?
I don't think he knows.
Well, I know some of the people in the party, like when I first told them about myself, like they rolled an insight and were higher than my deception. A couple people in the party were.
That's true.
So
I think
there should be a slightly lingering like knowledge that Merlot is not being entirely truthful.
He's right here, right now, Nick is. He's also in stream. I saw him chatting, so...
So that would be my response to that is... Merlot certainly knows why he didn't use... why he used the name Malsorin, but... the rest of the party doesn't yet.
We were talking before we went live about how non-inquisitive the party is at times. Of just like they're very willing to accept things as truth. Just like the first answer they get, they're like, okay, cool, yeah. You know, for a group of people who really loves watching Critical Role, like all of us were, you know, big into Critical Role, very much love that style of play. There's not a lot of insight checks that happen. They're just like, oh yeah, I assume you're not lying to me. That's fine. I accept your words. There's not a lot of that. Like we have one. I more often have to like prompt them and be like, please roll me an insight check or something. Then they ask for it. So I find that very funny.
Yeah, that's actually something that I think that Merlot's character will probably naturally start doing more insight checks, I think, the more comfortable they get with what's going on. Because insight checks for me are often like, I'm like, okay, I'm in my character's head and I'm like, does my character have a reason to suspect this and even be like paying attention? And so far, like everything's been so new and such a whirlwind that Merlot has just kind of been drinking from the fire hose, so to speak. But like Merlot is pretty inquisitive and not entirely trustful by nature. So I think that might be something that comes into play more.
Do you have proficiency or expertise in insight? Because I know you do on perception. Your passive perception is uber high. What about insight?
I do have proficiency in insight as well. I think I have like I think my passive is like 14 or 15. Like it's decently high. If I remember right. Don't have my character sheet up.
somewhere in here. Yeah, I will be very interested to see how Merlot can pull out some of the secrets, because there is a lot. There's also the fact, this is a fun side thing, Liam did not give me a full backstory for Store until like a month and a half ago. He had a very basic sort of motivations and backstory and stuff when we started. And then he gave me more information because I was asking him about like his family and like some of these other experiences that he had. And then he gave me a big old detailed thing. And I was like, okay, this I can use, and I have used it. And I don't know whether he has noticed that I have used it, but I have. And he has not said anything to the party about it because there wasn't really anything at the beginning when everybody met. And they're like, okay, I know who Store is. I know his whole deal. But now they don't, but they think they do. So Merlot can perfectly come in to be like, all right, I don't know what's going on with you. Let me ask about this stuff. The same thing goes with Thorak, of like his whole backstory. You were able to pull that out of him at first session. Just like, please explain.
Right.
Are you excited to be that person? Be the peace wrecker?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm very here for it. It was interesting playing as a guest character because I was talking to Lydia a little bit before stream too about how I often play much older, more serious, more inquisitive characters. Merlot is not that, but he is still very curious and inquisitive. And so that kind of pulling out and wanting to know what's going on and like those kinds of things I think will manifest in different ways. And I love that.
I'm so excited for things to come out. Okay, now let's spill some tea. I don't know if that's probably not the right use of this. Dish the dirt. What was Merlot's first impressions of the Bush Gang and the individual members?
So, first impression, Merlot is a creature of the sea, has spent a lot of time with a rather motley bunch for his entire life. So he is able to roll with the Bush Gang's shenanigans like pretty chill. Like they roll up with 8 skeletons and Merlot's like, oh yeah, like I've seen necromancy. It's like not necessarily probably as like freaked out as like the standard person would be by that. And kind of just like it's been talked about that they've met a variety of people who have come and gone, and so kind of fitting into the mold and kind of like feeling things out and being like, okay, this is how I fit into this group is something that Merlot is pretty comfortable with. So first impression, from Merlot's perspective, this isn't that unusual. A little crazy. Different styles of adventures than they're used to, certainly. They have never been on land this much, let alone beneath the earth. So that's freaking them out a little bit. But yeah, just kind of ready to jump in and be there for the ride.
Well, then let's go into individuals then. We'll go height-wise, tallest to shortest. What does he think about, okay. What does Merlot think about Store?
Store reminds Merlot of like a quartermaster, like kind of the figure that steps in when shit needs to get done, and like people in the group kind of defer to Store a little bit, like when Thorak is like talking to the nobles and is like, I'm gonna let Store take over. Like, so there's definitely a respect there, and a little bit of nervousness around Store, like not entirely sure how to behave around him as like what Merlot sees as kind of almost an authority figure. Also, Store was the first person to kind of bring concerns to Merlot about like, well, your kind's not really okay here, so let's talk about that. Kind of like a more stern figure. So Merlot doesn't dislike Store, but isn't quite sure. There's like a respect, but also like a little bit of insecurity, I think.
Gotcha. Like hanging out with the RA. Like
yeah,
you can be friendly with them, but like you're not going to be their best bud necessarily. Not right away.
Yeah, still feeling it out. Yeah.
Okay. There is a future question about this, about when Elias took the treasures from the dead people at the temple, and Store was the one who was like, no, like you can't do that. That's not cool. What did Merlot kind of think of that situation? So as Merlot intentionally slipped, so there should be some understanding of Merlot has lived by a pirate's code, and a code that is taken very seriously and is very much one more of a quality often than you might guess. Like every crew member, like a lot of like ship situations are somewhat democratic depending on the type of crew you're in. And there's like an equality piece and an equality piece that like Merlot experienced after the first battle where like loot was distributed. And like
people had a say. And so, yeah, there was definitely not... Merlot is also superstitious. So, didn't have a problem with, like, this is, as far as Merlot knows, like, this is Thorak's god. And, like, then Storr steps in as, like, this isn't okay. And then sees Elias do it anyway. So there's, like, a lot going on in Merlot's understanding of the group and, like, seeing how each person is interacting. And is still kind of processing that. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
So I would imagine there's not really a major superstition about taking the possessions of dead people in Merlot's history. Not necessarily.
Well, that's why he brought it up to Thorak, right? And was like, hey, this is like your god. And I don't know how that works. Like, that's where that came from. Because, like, yeah, religious people, like, the people of Clearego or whatever, like, he's made fun of before. Like, religious people, they don't fight back as much. Like, they're fun. So, yeah, it doesn't have a problem with, like, stealing from the dead bodies of religious people. But also, this is kind of the first time where they were like, wait, this is, like, your god, member of my group, how does this work? So that was kind of where that question came from.
And then Elias taking the stuff not necessarily with a obvious intent to share it around. Was that an issue then as well?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So let's move on from Storr, because we'll eventually get to Elias. He's the shortest. So the next one is Denono. What is the view on Denono currently?
Denono has been the quietest, which is not, I think, a huge surprise. So I started off not super pleased with the monkey thing, but so, like, didn't exactly get off on the right foot. It hasn't had, like, I don't feel like Merlot has had, like, a moment of connection with Denono yet in the way that he has with, like, Elias at first, and Thorak, and even, like, being on the, like, lightning horse with Storr, that was cool, you know, like, but there hasn't been, like, a definite connect or disconnect with Denono yet, I would say. So I'm not sure how much I have to say there, actually.
I feel like to some degree that is almost a relationship that he has with several members of the party, even though they've known each other for far longer. Just because Denono is very quiet, he only speaks up when he truly has something to say. Right. Often that is like an objection to someone's like attitude or something where he's like, I don't think that that's helpful. I don't think that that's good. So a lot of people, I think, are just like, I approve of him. Yeah, he's fine. You know, I don't have objections to Denono yet.
Yeah. And my assumption is that Merlot knows very little. Like, Merlot got, like, the rundown of what's been going down, but hasn't really heard much from Denono, like, specifically about who they are or what they're really about.
Yeah. Maybe I need to give you guys more, like, role play spans. I'm just like, all right, now drama. Go be drama now. go talk and figure things out between yourselves. I think there's definitely, several things that are just needing to get discussed, needing to get talked about. Like, Thorak killed a guy, and Denono is aware of it, and it's been like 3 weeks of game time, and it's not been talked about at all.
Right.
Also, the fact that Thorak just broke into a library for no obvious reason to the party. Maybe that needs to get discussed too. Maybe we'll start next game with a bit of chat time.
Bit of tavern conversation. Yeah.
But let's get all on the same page. Cool. Well, what about Thorak then?
I mean, Thorak gave Merlot a bottle of rum. and that is significant to Merlot, and generally has had, like, really appreciates Thorax kind of like, Thorax, like, crassness and drunkenness and kind of bull in a china shop nature is actually very familiar and, like, almost comforting to Merlot. It's, like, very similar to a lot of the types of people that Merlot grew up with. So there's definitely, like, a bond there, I would say, more than with most of the people in the party. Mm-hmm. And probably a little bit of admiration.
Oh yeah? Admiration? About what?
What do I get into?
Give as much dirt as you can without going into spoilers.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to gauge where that line is. Thorak really appreciated, not Thorak, Merlot really appreciated how readily Thorak seemed to accept Merlot into the group and just be like, oh yeah, let's go. That means a lot to Merlot. I feel appreciated there. They've, like, connected over drinking, and Thorak has, like, been very, just the fact that Thorak has been very casual with Merlot means a lot to Merlot for reasons that will probably be revealed at some point. I think that's as much as I can say. I'm so new and no one's asked me questions.
These non-inquisitive dudes that are just like, I'm fine with everything. It's great. It's fine. Little Miss Fodder saying in the chat, you can share all of the spoilers with me. She loves to know. I'll send you
a DM
with the full backstory and all of your evil plans that even I don't know about.
Yeah, I've got backstory 2.0. I'm Big Baddie.
Oh no. You don't even, that's none of y'all even know.
Little baddie.
Little baddie. Specifically, like, volumetrically little baddie. Merlot could be as evil as anything else, but still very small.
Big baddie in a small package.
Big, little, bad, evil guy. All right, well, talking about through all of them, we now have Elias left. What are Merlot's thoughts on Elias?
Merlot has had a little bit of whiplash with Elias. Felt like an immediate connection with Elias over the whole, like, we're both short. And then the, like, backstab of, but you're the shortest. And, like, several, like, definitely, like, pointed teasing, but almost slightly maliciously, it felt like, about Merlot's height. Definitely was, like, emotional whiplash for Merlot. Also unsure how to feel about Elias because, like, a couple things have been dropped very nonchalantly about Elias. Like, Elias being, like, part were-tiger was, like, just very nonchalantly dropped. And Elias taking the loot from the bodies after the conversation in the store, like, very nonchalantly, like, taking place. And Elias, like, fighting with Kinslayer, like, being really aggressive in that conversation that Merlot is only hearing half of. Mm-hmm. Like, Elias all Merlot knows is, like, there's a lot happening. Elias launched himself off of a horse, like, down a cliff.
He did do that, yeah.
Merlot is not usually that easily, like, thrown off by people's erratic behavior, I would say. But Elias, Merlot just more and more is like, what is happening? Who is this person? A little bit of, like, I would say there's, like, probably a little bit of distrust happening right now. And just, like, unsure about, like, who this person is and what their role is in this group. And, like, yeah, a lot of that is... And not only that, like, Merlot is aware of necromancy and has seen it and is not bothered by it, but is aware of, like, what it is too, and, like, its nature. And so there's there's like a lot of yellow flags. Like not necessarily like full-on red flags, but it's like when you're on Tinder and you're like, okay, there's enough yellow flags here that maybe I don't know about this.
Yeah. Now we really need to have some RP moments. I want to see this, like these discussions happen in character for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Elias is that bad influence friend your parents don't like you hanging out with. But he doesn't know it. I feel like Elias is not necessarily aware of those things that he does that everyone's like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't apply.
Right.
Yanni doesn't count in Bush Gang, so we won't talk about her. I love her to death,
Merlot's
but
like,
she was
"Who's
not
that?"
present. She's not very present. You guys literally left her with the horses and went to go save the world.
Yeah.
According to him, Merlot had an intense and interesting life on the high seas. How does it compare to being thrown into a mysterious and interplanar web of confusing occurrences?
Oh gosh. How does it compare? Again, a little bit like I talked about before, like Merlot is used to a very exciting life of adventure already. Like from a very, very young age, their life has been pretty intense. So definitely it's different than they're used to, and they're getting their land legs, so to speak. Like everything is so new, and I'm gonna use the phrase again. It's like drinking from the fire hose a little bit right now with everything that's going on, and there just keeps being like more and more layers added and things dropped. And
does it worry him? Because like what he had been doing before, it was intense, but there wasn't necessarily the significant ramifications of the stuff that's going on now.
Yeah, and I think it's come up a couple times, like asking Store, like, so why are we going towards the scary stuff? Like that piece of it is very different. Like the intentions behind the adventures and why things are being done, very different. Like Merlot's life has not revolved around like Thorax's big long speech about like, well, if you were in a town and you saw something bad happening, wouldn't you try to help? Merlot's like, no, why would we do that? And like to the extent that Merlot like really doesn't understand like why we would, like, these people aren't part of our group, they aren't part of our crew. So why do y'all care so much? So there's like a level of confusion there, I would say, and like yeah, there'll be more conversations about like, I think as long as
go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I was gonna ask another question about like, so you've been kind of tasked by the clan masters of Cunfaldir to go find the people who've been kidnapped by these creepy creatures and stuff. And like, yeah, they talked about like repaying you. They didn't give any hard numbers in any sort of way.
Yeah. Oh, that's something that will be brought up, whether it's before, during, or after, or maybe all three, of like, Merlot's not feeling chill to just like put his life on the line for no reason. Like that, if that comes up, there will probably be some strong feelings of like, why did we do this then? So yeah, curious to see how that goes, because also like Merlot is not a place where he is going to be taken particularly seriously. Like if anyone's gonna like be able to discuss like, well, like as we are doing this great deed for the city, like we feel like it should be deserving of us to get some recompense. That's like a very Store thing. And like Store would be the one who would be able to like make that happen much more than Merlot. So Merlot is going to have those conversations with the party and not necessarily be able to be like, hello, I'm a tiny dragon that you think is a baby. Like, give us money.
Yeah, I do find that dynamic to be very interesting. Like the rest of the party has had 21 other adventurers to turn them into people with different motivations that Merlot has not had. Like, he has gotten to, level 7 in a very different way than the rest of the party has. And the clash of those is so interesting. This next question, it's actually our last question. This is from Aaron. With all we're starting to learn about each PC and their backstories, what character moments are you excited to play out, and what are you maybe more nervous for?
Is this question for you or me?
This is for you. It might be for both of us, but I'm pretty sure it was directed to you. I can specifically check Discord and make sure.
Okay.
I think that one's for you.
So what am I interested in?
Oh, wait, no, that was to me. Well, dang. I want you to answer it too, though.
Okay. Do you want me to? I can
yeah,
go
you
first,
go first. Yeah.
Merlot is realizing, I think, starting to understand that, and maybe even feel a little bit like they have worried that they've bitten off more than they can chew, so to speak. Because initially it was like, hey, we're gonna like do some shit, and then we're going to Bamoa. And Merlot's like, oh, cool. Like, I'm a little kobold by myself, apparently, on another continent. Like, oh, these people want me to come along? That sounds like a good idea. And now all of a sudden it's like we're fighting a 20-foot tall devil.
Uh-oh. We lost you. Lost Spencer. They're gone. They've got kind of shaky Wi-Fi down where they're at in Mexico. We'll wait a second and see if they can get back. But if not, then I'll answer the question for me. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Am I back?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, you're back.
I'm sorry, yeah. Sorry, y'all. I've been having Wi-Fi problems. How long ago did it disappear?
Not too long. Maybe a minute, maybe.
Okay, so, like, start of the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it...
So...
The thought that I had while you were talking is, like, it'd be like trying to fly from Mexico to Canada and then getting into a storm and then finding yourself in feudal Japan from several centuries before. Like, it's not a very easy transition.
It's very jarring, and it, like, in Merlot's little kobold brain was just kind of like, okay, yeah, like, I'm here apparently in a place that is completely not where I wanted to be. And these people are going to the place that not only going to the place where I want to go, but also seem super down with, like, me coming along and being, like, part of their group. And so, like, I get protection. I can help them out. They just gave me gold. Like, this kind of seems like a win-win. But now they're like, now they are in an underground city fighting a devil that's huge, and there's talking swords and, like, dwarves getting kidnapped that now we're rescuing. And it's just kind of like, okay, wait, is this what I signed up for? So there's definitely, like, some concern about, like, biting off more than he can chew. And, like, starting to understand really, like, okay, like, so when are we going to Bamoa again? Right? Maybe some of that creeping in of, like, okay, wait, what? So, yeah, questions about motivations and what the path looks like to get there with this group will probably start to come into play.
I'm excited to see that happen, but I'm also a little bit nervous for it because there haven't been time for the friendship bonds to kind of form with Merlot and the rest of the party. So if those concerns come up, it could be a little gnarly to deal with instead of just like, oh no, friend that we love and support and we have nearly died side by side with several times. We totally understand and respect your opinions and we will do our best. It could be just like, who are you, dude? Like,
right.
We're the heroes, you're the baby dragon sidekick, and that'd be really awful if it went that way. So I'm a little nervous for that. I'm also really nervous for, like, when the Torm stuff gets out. Like, that is going to be a mess. It's gonna be a real mess. I really appreciate, we've been sharing some like jokes and memes in our player Discord a little bit about like Thorax snitching on Torm to Moradin. And she's like, you told my dad. That is gonna be, I don't know when that's gonna happen, but there's gonna be some interactions there that are going to be difficult, I think. I'm very excited for them to happen. I'm very nervous about it too. And now that Kinslayer's been thrown in the mix and Thorak has like attuned to him and is like kind of bonded with him now, that is just making it so much worse. Because Kinslayer is not so a chill dude. Kinslayer is not chill at all. I shared after they identified it, I dropped the info into Discord, and there were a couple of paragraphs at the end that I didn't read on stream. He's not chill with people breaking their promises. He's not okay with people like doing really bad unjust things, and he has ways to push back against that and make them suffer for it. And I would really hate to have to do that to Thorak. I mean, I would kind of love it at the same time, but I would also really hate it. So I don't know. That's gonna be tough. But we're out of time at this point. Is there any last thing that you want to say or cover before we wrap up and switch over to Ready to Roll?
I'm just ecstatic to be here and ecstatic to just continue to see how Merlot and his story continues to weave and intertwine with everyone else's. Thank you for everything that you do.
We're so happy to have you, and we're really excited to see you. We're not going to have a typical performance check with the Bush Gang on Monday. It's going to be a one-shot. Going to be weird and wild, you guys, so come for that. And then in a week and a half, we'll be back with Spencer and the rest of the Bush Gang. And now we're going to switch over, take a quick, like, 2-minute break while I'm switching over. And then we'll do Ready to Roll's half. We'll see you in a second, you guys.
See you in a couple weeks, y'all. Bye.